Hey everyone, welcome back to The Great Retention with Kamber Parker Bowden, sponsored by Generational Performance Solutions. I'm Kamber, founder and CEO of GPS, where we bring you strategies to cultivate a high-performing and committed team in a rapidly changing workplace. Whether you're looking to enhance cross-generational communication or navigate generational dynamics in the office, you've come to the right place. Today, I am really excited to have Ryan Heafy, co-founder and COO at 6am City, joining us right here in Greenville, South Carolina. Ryan and his co-founder, Ryan Johnston, have shaken up the local news media industry. In the past 10 years, they've expanded their newsletters from Greenville to cities across the nation and become the fastest growing local newsletter first media company in the US. My claim to fame is that I was the first Greenville Today intern before 6am City was even formed. So Ryan was one of my internship supervisors, and I've had the privilege to watch their business grow from the very beginning. I'm thrilled to have Ryan in the studio with me today to cover the news media landscape and how he's tackling all of the changes impacting today's workplace. Whew. Ryan, welcome.
Thanks, Kamber. Excited to be here.
I'm very excited. Did you remember that I was the OG Greenville Today intern?
We 100% know that and talk about it from time to time. And it's been fun to watch your journey growing your business. The entrepreneurial road is always exciting. And while we started ours, it's cool to watch former employees go on and build theirs.
Yeah, it's such a fun throwback to think about. And here we are 10 years later. So let's dive in with a quick lightning round. So in a couple of sentences or less, tell me something that is not on your resume.
I think my family is not on my resume. Oftentimes people overlook the dynamics of their lives, like the work-life balance part. And I think that your children and your spouse and other people are an important part of that resume. Mm-hmm. Yes, I've done some other crazy things back in the day. I think I had a little media company when I was in like first grade, where we would report the news from the garage to the neighbors, and worked in spring break travel and all sorts of other fun things. But the reality is the other part of your resume today that matters is your family, and balance. That work-life balance has been super important to me and how I define my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that answer. Thank you. If you were not in the news media business, what would you be doing?
I probably would have followed the traditional career path that said, go to college, go work at a Fortune 500 company, a big company, and stay there and do your thing and grind. And for me, that was aerospace manufacturing. I absolutely loved that industry, and had opportunities not aligned, I probably would still be in the aerospace industry. Outside of the aerospace industry, I would be, and I was truly scratching my entrepreneurial itch. I'd be building quick hit AI startups right now, and how to launch as many as possible and see what sticks.
Yeah. Well, who needs a traditional career path, right? When
That's
you
right.
have all of the opportunities at hand. And last lightning round question: what is your favorite part about living in Greenville?
Work-life balance. Our quality of life in Greenville is amazing. The ability to get outside the majority of the year, to experience parks, trails, running activities, food scene. I think it's been really unique to watch a city grow. Greenville's is a growing community, so being part of that ecosystem is cool, and you can leave your own legacy here. Greenville's not so big that you can't make your mark.
Yeah, love it. And I don't ask all of my guests that question, but because you got your start with Greenville Today, I just naturally had to ask, and I agree with you. So speaking of, let's dive into some of our main topics today. 6am City has become a true powerhouse in local media, something that feels difficult to accomplish in a time where generations get their news from vastly different sources. So what is it like generating content for an audience that spans generations, and how do you try to cater to a wide audience? So loaded question. It might help if you share a little bit more about 6am City, so
Sure.
People who don't know have a little bit of a taste first.
Yeah, so 6am City is the fastest growing newsletter first local media company in the country. So we produce newsletters in hundreds of cities across America every single day, telling people how to experience their community. How do you spend your time, talent, and treasure locally? How do we activate people, drive economic impact in the communities that we serve? And so ultimately people are waking up and reading the newsletter going, hey, what am I going to do today, this weekend, in my community? And for us, what that means is that we're looking for a super local, somebody who really is passionate about their community, They have a high degree of curiosity. They want to participate in what's going on in Greenville or wherever they live. And so ultimately, we're not targeting, like most businesses do, a very specific generational target audience. It's really about people who are passionate about community. That naturally tends to be folks who are a bit older in nature or post-collegiate timeframe, all the way up through end of life. And so for us, it's really been about packaging and making content accessible in a manner that's easily consumable by whomever those folks are. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes our consumers are professionals. And so most folks have an inbox that they depend on for their work or life. And by meeting people in the inbox, that's really allowed us a great way to connect across generations. And then we can take our content and repackage it and distribute it across the plethora of social media channels in ways that repackages it for the right eyeballs. But that's kind of phase two. The newsletter is really the core product and where we make our money.
Right. And I like hearing that, like, the core first and foremost is we just want people who who are looking for things to do in their community, to give back to their community. It's like people who are passionate. And then phase two is distributing it across channels where, like, you're naturally probably going to get in front of more young professionals on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat versus Facebook is going to be more of your experienced professionals, right? So, like, that's phase two. But first is we just want to get people who actually care first.
And if you curate and package all of the relevant need to know information, kind of like our newsletter is like a morning newscast script. Once you have that, you can slice and dice it 100 different ways, but you need to build your first piece of work. If you start the opposite way and build one piece of social content, here, it may not work everywhere. Right. And so we are creating the greatest possible opportunity to maximize distribution and reach across all audiences.
Yeah, makes complete sense. So let's talk about the future of media, because it is changing as we speak, right? It's changing very rapidly, with some mediums declining while others are soaring. So where do you think news media is headed, and how is 6 a.m. City prepared for it?
I think one of the things that's super interesting is that we've kind of watched the newspaper decline. And we're actively watching broadcast media decline, the typical morning newscast that folks get. And what you're seeing is a lot of companies and independent creators creating their own content. So historically, the way that a local healthcare system approached marketing was different than it is today. Everyone is creating their own content. Your business is creating your own content to get out there, to get in front of audiences. And so what's going to matter on a local level or for a general consumer is the aggregation of content that's relevant to me, and parsing that through the noise of AI and fake news type content that's out there amongst all the ether. So having reliable sources for information and having that packaged and delivered to you in a appropriate manner is going to become more and more important. So you'll see more independent creators. You'll see the demise of, I think, the traditional legacy TV next, and you'll see this massive, massive surge of AI assisted created content and efficiencies in the way media is produced and distributed. So I think people are going to be pretty blown away with how we consume content over the next few years. Yeah,
and I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great segue to talking about just authenticity and how your team really cultivates, you just talked about in the last question, how you're packaging your content out so that it is directly reaching people that will consume it. But how do you build an authentic brand in this time? Because I do want to dive into the AI news, because right now, there are so many things on YouTube, on social media, where I'm now like, wait a second. And like, there was just a Ryan Gosling thing the other day. Then that was like for a campaign, but I was like, is this AI, right? Like so how do you decipher as somebody who's digesting this information? And then how do you create authentic content for people?
For us, it's really important that we lean into our editorial talent in the markets that we serve. They become like B-list celebrities in a lot of our cities.
Shout out Danielle.
Yeah, people in our community know who they are. They know that they are representatives of the city, that they are a positive voice oftentimes for what's going on in the community. They help to keep them informed. And without that face, that personality, you can hear tone in their writing that you cannot generate the same way with AI. And so our ability to have fostered that authentic relationship in communities not only supports the relationship with the consumer, but also with our advertisers. And knowing that it's a safe space, knowing that the information is human curated and pulled together, ensures that also brands are positioned next to valid, credible information, ensures that the content that's being communicated to the community is accurate and correct. There's a lens. And ultimately having someone that's there to serve as your human filter, and to talk to you the way we're talking across a table, feels a lot more meaningful, and it's going to get someone to come back to that same table and continue that conversation to talk back to us. And it's worked well. We continue to double down on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart strategy. And I have to tell this really short story. I feel like I've been with Danielle, and again, shout out Danielle. She's amazing because I think she does kind of embody what you are talking about, right? Every time I've been with her in a social setting, like a networking event, and somebody comes up, I can just see them like looking at her like, I know you, but how do I know you? And every time somebody, like I make the connection, I'm like, she's in your inbox every morning.
Yep.
There's like this immediate connection, and you can't get that anywhere else. And so, especially with news going on the track that it's going on right now. So you guys have done a great job with that. And that's why I really want to talk about your own talent attraction and retention right now. I know that your team has changed a lot over the past 10 years. So because you're in such a fast changing industry, you obviously need really strong team members. You need these faces that can come before the news every day. So how do you recruit, retain, and develop a growing team? What does that look like?
That's a complicated question with a complicated answer. I mean, I think it's evolved over time. As a startup, your first employees are making bets on you. You've convinced somebody that it was a good idea to join the team. Then you have to build a culture that makes them want to stay and fosters their development, so you can keep them there for a long time. And then as the company continues to grow and you go through various iterations and change management, you need to keep them. And so we focused a lot and brought in outside support in the early years to build our company culture. What are the values that we have and embody, which I do believe are pretty pervasive in our product today, and how we operate our business. However, with a company, those things are tested a lot. And we make incorrect assumptions a lot. Like, hey, we're going to triple the size of the business. Well, that was the worst decision we probably ever made at our company. We went too fast. Well, then you have to get rid of folks and you have these giant change management decisions. And ultimately, while we've made a lot of mistakes, we've learned that communication is really important. And so long as the company is operating in a manner that is transparent to the extent that it can be with this staff, you're going to get better buy-in with the changes and decisions that you make. And then people aren't leaving because they're fearful of the company or because they don't like the culture. They're leaving because we had to let them go, because we made a change. Ultimately, not everyone will ever understand that, but like why? Hey, why did I get let go? Well, we made a mistake. Like this, we expanded and we need to contract to support the longevity of the business. It's a strategic decision, but everyone else who remains on the bus after those changes needs to understand the why. And so we've gotten pretty good at explaining the why, building a robust culture, the onboarding, training, mentorship programs, all the I assume them to be fundamental, but recognize a lot of companies don't have all of those tools. All that stuff's super important. But the only other thing I would say maybe is the collaboration amongst folks that are in different places. We're spread out all over the place, which we can talk about more if you like. But the bonds and relationships between the staff have gone far further probably than any culture we could create, where like you got two people that just love working together so much that neither one wants to go anywhere because they want to stay with each other. And our team has independently been kind of empowered to form those bonds and really be kind of committed to each other and to the company. And we've got people that have been with us since the very beginning still, which I think is a testament to that success. But yeah, I mean, it's managing the culture and the people is probably the hardest thing. And it's something that as a leader, I think as long as you're always willing to learn from it, you can always do better the next time.
Yeah, well said. I mean, what I'm hearing is being transparent is really important with a growing team in a startup environment, obviously within reason. But I mean, kudos to you guys especially for having people that are still here after all this time. You know, that is a lot of change. And so I think it's so important for leaders to be clear, regardless of whether you're a startup or a Fortune 500 company. Like there needs to be clarity. Otherwise, you will have people who leave.
Yeah. I think one thing on that that I think maybe it might be interesting for this audience is I'm 40. My perception of how employees get communicated with at 40 is so much different than our 25-year-old staff members.
Let's dive into that.
It's been pretty interesting because when I was, working for larger companies in my earlier part of my career, I just got shown out the door if I was getting laid off and nothing was communicated to anybody. Like that was just like, hey, we made a change and things are different. And like everyone, it was just kind of like normal. And today there is a high degree of emotion of wanting to understand the why and how these decisions are made and like how long, and it is an interesting balance in like how much information you can and cannot share. Well, some of it you can't share because it's HR related stuff. Like I can't tell you, some of these people were laid off and some of those people just were fired. It's all happened at the same time. Sometimes you can't share the full nature of the business decision, or explaining the business decision is more complicated than a layperson is going to understand. And so we've done a pretty good job of working to get feedback after these changes, especially from the younger generation, to better position how we deliver change management communications going forward.
Yeah.
But it's surely different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making that comparison. And, we're talking a lot about communication and change management, which I love. I mean, change management is so much of what we do, because if you don't understand generational change, then you're not going to understand how to manage those shifts that are coming. But let's talk more about communication and how, you do have a team that's all over. How do you communicate this change? How do you communicate just on a day-to-day basis? Those people that you mentioned who love working with each other that might not necessarily be in the same place. Like, what does good communication look like across teams that are multi-generational and multi-regional?
So our team is widely dispersed across the country. And then the majority even in the same market are remote. And so our team uniquely pre-COVID era was already decentralized. And so we had kind of adopted a Zoom culture early on and worked through the same challenges folks did on expectations for what should be in the background of your, Zoom image. Are your family members allowed to be around? Can you have a cat and a dog and all the things? And we set up some good ground rules, like pre-COVID, like way early on. And through COVID, we learned a lot from other businesses and adopted kind of best practices for remote work environments. But ultimately, I think the tools to facilitate communication like Slack, which is our primary internal comms technology and Google Workspace where everyone can kind of collaborate on documentation, and similarly with our content management systems. The ability to have live dialogue all day long is kind of like you're sitting next to these people anyways. When we need to communicate actual changes and change management related things, our new processes or whatever, we've identified that not all people receive information the same way. And so it is extremely important to deliver it like at least 3 different ways. So typically you have a verbal comms in a meeting. You have, and it's then a documented version of whatever you shared if it's process oriented. And then we do weekly department updates. Mm-hmm. So every week, the changes that are relevant to your department in a weekly email, so everyone can see it there. And then we message out changes in Slack. And then if things rise to a more formal level, they also go via email. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of getting it you're getting it in numerous different written capacities, plus a process and an audible communication. It's updated in systems everywhere. It's rolled out at a specific time. Mm-hmm. And we try to provide preemptive knowledge of what's coming. So it's also not a surprise. And that helps a lot for adoption. And then also with changes in communications is buy-in just on what those changes are and getting contributors to the table. But if you communicate one thing via email or via one Slack message and you think your team is going to know it, they don't know it and they're not going to remember it. So yeah, all those things are super important.
Yeah, I'm really thinking about just the clear calls to action for our listeners because we have a lot of business leaders of companies of all sizes who really struggle with this, right? They tell me often it's going in one ear, Kamber, and it's going out the other. And it's likely because you're sending an email to, we have a lot of data that says Gen Z does not check their email. They don't. So we have to figure out how do we meet them where they are. And for leaders that are struggling to hear this, things are not changing. They've already changed. And so how do we drive performance? It's by communicating, the best way. And so you guys are maybe doing a few extra steps on the front end, but you're also saving time and money in the long run by communicating 3 different ways.
Yeah. And a lot of, to the technological advancements, a lot of notifications are automated too. So if we push something, we're intentionally pushing it. We're intentionally pushing things out or releasing things in a way that like a Slack notification happens or an email is automated with updates that goes out at a certain time. So while these sound like lots of work, maybe you can ultimately distribute stuff in several different channels with one click of a button if you're smart.
Yeah, working smarter, not harder with the tools that you have. One thing I want to touch on is in your newsletters, you make a habit of not bringing up the negative side of politics and news. Can you speak to that a little bit? And maybe, I'm assuming it's probably helped you build trust because you're this trusted source that is, again, very focused on one specific thing. But can you just speak to that? Because I know it's very intentional.
Yeah. As a media company, our true differentiator is no politics, no crime and punishment, no divisive topics. And by serving to inform our readers and community about how they can spend their time, talent, and treasure or experience their communities, makes it a safe, credible, trusted source of information where there's clearly no biased lens that's against the rules in our content policy. And so it creates an inviting space. And that transcends the office, right? I mean, we're not in here in hot debated conflict with each other. We're working on trying to collaborate and support and educate and inform and provide good feedback. And it's just the culture of the content in the company. Like everyone loves that space. A lot of the people who come work for us come work with us because of our thesis of our business. Like they don't want to go report on homicides and car accidents and stuff. They want to talk about the news in a different light. And so that actually is a huge part of our recruitment and retention too.
Right. Which I can imagine is very appealing in a time so divisive as this. So I think that's a really great strategy. And I'm glad I thought to ask that, because it really is something that I think makes you stand out, from a reader, but I would imagine from people who are interested in working for you. What would you say to business leaders who are listening and watching today? What can they do immediately when it comes to attracting, retaining, developing talent, and anything else that you think we need our listeners to take away from today?
I think from a recruitment perspective, I think it's important to understand that it varies based off of the age and skill and role that you're looking for on how you find those people. And similar to how media has niched down into different verticals, like there's people that talk about sports and people who just cover politics and people who cover their local community. Similarly, on the recruitment front, it is not like you can just sign up for Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever anymore and just assume that the folks are going to land in your inbox or flagged, my generation is all on LinkedIn, definitively. The next generation definitively is not to the same degree, but they are niched down in the verticals that they are interested in. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing these even like micro industry verticals that where there's content and job postings and things, and like reaching into those specific groups has materially opened the doors for us on the recruitment track versus following some of your traditional LinkedIn type outreach that may be more standard for folks, or just going through their HRP relationship and like post a job posting and it just magically goes out to all these places. Right. I would describe that as lazy, probably, and not really focusing on the niche groups where people are actually living on a day-to-day basis. Because ultimately your best talent is not looking for a job probably. Right. And so how are you going to go get their attention and put an opportunity in front of them that they're not looking for? Yeah. And I think that's why those industry vertical groups are maybe more intentional. Yeah.
Think outside the box is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Maybe don't go towards those traditional ways of attracting talent. Yeah. And same goes for retaining that talent. Last question for you today. And then if there's anything else that you feel like we haven't covered, let me know. But I know that part of your work at 6 a.m. City is, you're traveling a lot. You're going to conferences. You're speaking on tons of podcasts. Like, you're out there. What, aside from what we've already covered today, would you say is really crucial for leaders to be aware of? And this can also be people who are individual contributors. Like, what should they be aware of? Because, you're out there, you're hearing all the trends, you're very on top of what's going on with AI and, where technology is heading. So what are some parting words that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I think that as a business leader, if you are not actively spending time learning AI every day, you won't be a business leader for long, because ultimately the technology is evolving so fast that not only is it displacing lower skilled jobs, it is materially changing high skilled jobs. And you will also lose your competitive advantage even if you are great at what you do, because someone's going to come and change the game. And I think, as we discussed here, change is constant. And as AI continues to be pervasive in the workforce, really in not in just writing words, but in the actual processes, infrastructure, the agents and things that are behind the scenes, as that continues to take more of a hold, if you're not holding on to it, you're gonna miss the boat. And I really do believe a lot of businesses will ultimately succumb to AI just moving faster than they're capable of evolving with.
Yeah. Agreed. I feel like that was a mic drop moment and a good way to wrap up the episode when you said if you're a business leader not spending time on AI daily and learning new skills, you won't be a business leader for long. Yeah. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today. I am also just really proud to see where you all have come in 10 years, and I'm excited to see what the future of 6 a.m. City looks like. So thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Kamber. Appreciate it.
And thank you again for joining us on The Great Retention. Before you go, remember this: the generational landscape is shifting, and today's workforce is not the same workforce we once knew. Our mission is to help you save time and money by identifying these shifts and demystifying generational differences through our keynotes, workshops, and our workforce planning. Contact us today if you're interested in transforming your multi-generational workplace, and let's drive your business towards long-term sustainability and success. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others know where to find episodes about this topic. And don't forget to share with your coworkers. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.